From teacher to Arizona's top construction insurance agency, we're going to talk with Aaron Stauss. You're going to learn about his life, what he overcame, the challenge of being a teacher, and the outlook on the insurance industry in his company. He is the best in the state. Enjoy. What's going on? So today's guest is Aaron Stauss. Aaron owns Gilbert Insurance, right?
Gilbert Insurance Group.
So father?
Yep.
Husband?
Yep.
Entrepreneur?
Exactly.
Leader in the marketplace?
I think so.
I know so, right? So Aaron, I'm glad to have you on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Chris. This is, I'm excited. Like I've never done one of these. And yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, we'll get into that, but how you started this.
Yeah. So Aaron, I know Aaron because Aaron is our insurance guy in our business is. He handles all the insurance, workers' comp too, right? Everything, the whole gamut. He's a great guy. You're super good at what you do, and I just wanted to pick your brain, but I want to start I like to start with the guess of, how you got to where you're at. Maybe take me through a little quick scenario of how you grew up and your upbringing, because we all have different upbringings, right? And it's good to know where someone came from and understand where they're going. You appreciate it a little bit more, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I grew up in Nebraska.
Okay.
Small town in Nebraska called Gothenburg, Nebraska.
Never heard of it.
I always say I grew up on the mean streets of Gothenburg, Nebraska.
What does that mean?
No. A little town of about 3,500 people, farming community. Although I grew up in town, so I wasn't.
You weren't the farmer boy.
I was not the farmer.
No farmersonly.com.
Now I have a good friend who's a farmer who I stay in touch with back there. But the town, Nebraska, was a great place to grow up. Just a great place to be from. Had great friends that I grew up with. It was, I don't necessarily want to paint it as like a Norman Rockwell type childhood, but it was a good place to be from and in a good time to grow up.
I like it.
You would get on your bike, ride around town with your friends, go over to your friend's house. We had this whistle that would go off at 6 o'clock, and
in the whole town.
In the whole town could hear this whistle that would go off, and it was 6 o'clock, and everybody had to be home for dinner by 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's like Leave It to Beaver stuff.
Exactly. So, and we would just go to the park, and we would play football, basketball, baseball, whatever season it was, and it was. It's not like, so I've had kids who grew up here, and as, they were getting older, I couldn't really draw from how I grew up as a model to how to raise them in a city, because it was just so much different.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents probably didn't worry about, we'd just be gone.
Dude, the whistle blew and it's time to come home.
And we'd be home.
So like at dawn, like 6 o'clock's like dawn, huh? And boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We need that in Phoenix. Everybody go home now. Quit playing around, right? Like 12 o'clock at night or something.
Yeah. So it was a good place. And then I was always playing sports. Basketball ended up being my big sport, and I ended up going to college and playing basketball in college for a couple of years, and ended up graduating from college. And so through that, what I wanted to do was I wanted to coach. I wanted to be a basketball coach.
Which college was that?
Well, I went to junior college.
Oh, not the Cornhuskers?
No, not a big Cornhusker fan, though, because that's a requirement when you grow up there.
Okay.
But in fact, that if we really want to go back, my first childhood memory is the Nebraska-Oklahoma 1971 game of the century where Johnny Rodgers returned this punt. I remember our family got together because that's what you did every Thanksgiving. And Johnny Rodgers returned this. It's an epic play in college football.
Okay.
And that's the first thing I remember. I was 4 years old in 1971. First thing I remember as a human being. So
Johnny Rodgers.
Johnny Rodgers punt return. My family went crazy, and that's probably what I remember the most.
I have no clue who that guy is.
Everybody.
Did he go to the NFL?
He won the Heisman. Yeah.
He went to the NFL too?
Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't really have a great career in the NFL, but he did win the Heisman. And
he made it, though. He made it.
So that game was called the game of the century, but that was the first thing I remember. So I have on my wall in my office, I have a picture of different parts of that punt return.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
I'm nostalgic that way. So.
I like it. I like it. So you went to junior college in Nebraska, and what would you major minor in?
Well, so I went primarily to play basketball, right? And I was trying to figure it out, and I always kind of knew in the back of my mind I was gonna I wanted to coach. I don't know if you remember way back in the day. You see that classic North Carolina State national championship game with Jimmy Valvano. He was the coach, and they made this crazy shot at the buzzer to win the NCAA championship, and he's running all over the court. That's what I wanted to be.
You wanted to just run all over the court?
I wanted to be the coach. I wanted to coach at the college level.
Yeah.
And so played a couple of years of junior college basketball. Then I transferred to a 4-year school at Kearney State. It was then. It's University of Nebraska at Kearney now. But and tried out for the team. Blew out both my ankles right before the tryouts. And
really?
So that was the end of that.
That was it.
Yeah, but you
could have been like John Stockton or something.
No, I couldn't have.
Just kidding. I was just joking.
So I knew I wasn't going to be in the NBA or anything like that. So coaching would have. That's what I wanted to do. So then I went into teaching to coach.
So would you get you got a degree in some sort of education program or something?
Bachelor of Science in Education.
Okay.
Social Studies. So
you were a teacher in Nebraska as well?
No. After I graduated college, I moved out to Arizona.
When was that?
That was at the end of 1991.
Okay. So I would have been 11. I would have been 11. 1991, man, I was just starting to get drunk. Bad time. Just the beginning of a bad time.
Well, I was probably doing some of that too.
Yeah, you were a lot older though.
Yeah.
So
I could do it legally.
Yeah. So you moved to Arizona. So the coaching career is gone.
I hadn't started yet.
Oh, but you're a teacher.
So I graduated from college and then moved to Arizona.
And became a teacher.
Became a teacher. Well, the first thing I did was while I was going to school, and even before that, so my dad was a teacher, and he painted houses and whatnot on the side. And so I did some work with him, and I painted, for summer job and that sort of thing. And then when I was in college, my last couple of years of college, I was painting and getting my degree.
I didn't know you had a painting background. We could have hired you.
I can cut a line like nobody's business.
Still?
Yeah. Oh, I'm the trim guy.
All right. So you became a teacher.
So then, I moved out here and got a job painting.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what?
So it was weird. I moved out here, and so I made a couple calls, because school hadn't started yet, and I had to get resumes in and letters in and whatnot. Yeah. And the reason I moved out here was because my fiance then, who's my wife now, moved out here like a little bit before, 6 months before, a year before.
So you're like, if I want her, I got to go be with her. Chase her down. You ain't going nowhere.
Yep.
That's good.
So high school sweethearts. My wife's name's Tara. She's from, I met her when I was in 7th grade.
Nebraska. She's a Cornhusker.
Yeah. So she got her teaching degree, and she came out to do her student teaching out here. Her parents moved to Lake Havasu. So that's what started the whole thing.
Moving out this way.
Well, actually, her dad was the superintendent of schools at my high school.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then I went to college. She's a year younger than me. So then she went to Wyoming because her dad and family had gotten a job in Wyoming. And so her senior year, she moved to Wyoming and then went to college where I went to college. And so
So you're here. Now you're here.
So now I'm here.
You chased her down. You're like, you ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. And so before I started teaching, like I said, I made a few calls and got hired right away from some painting crew. And it was weird. It just tells you the times, right? So I put in a call, and the guy says, yeah, sure. We'll take a look at you. So here's the job site. And I didn't know, man, this was the first big city I'd really been in. I drove through Denver on the way here.
You had like a couple hundred people in your town or something. Yeah. A couple thousand.
3,500.
Yeah.
Same population now.
Don't buy any rental property in, what is it, Gothenburg?
Gothenburg.
Not Gotham City, guys. Gothenburg.
Gothenburg. Right. So So anyway, I show up to the job site. Well, on the phone call, the guy asked me, he said, "Do you have short hair?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." And so I'm thinking like, okay, well, this is a requirement. I have to have short hair and whatnot. So I don't know, it just kind of threw me. I hadn't had that question before. But anyway, so I get the job site, and here's these 3 other guys, and they all have ponytails and hair down the middle of their back. And he's asking me about it. Anyway, I got the job, and it wasn't a fit. So I was making some more calls, and I ended up working with another guy. And within a week or so, I'm running this 10-man paint crew.
Nice.
So, but that kept me going until then I got hired. I ended up painting the house of the superintendent of schools for Mesa Schools.
Oh, okay, the Mesa District.
It's not always what you know, right? It's who you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
did a bang up job in the paint job there. She gave me a bottle of wine, set up an interview for me, and that's how I got into.
She gave you a bottle of wine?
Yeah.
She's trying to get something else?
Just the wine.
Just the wine.
And an interview.
The job.
Yeah.
And you got a job.
Got a job.
What school were you at?
Teaching. I was at Hendricks Junior High.
So you were a teacher, painter, teacher, but at this point, you're still leading. I'm imagining, like I can imagine you've always been a leader.
Sports.
Well, in everything, you've been a leader because you literally got hired and now you're running a paint crew. You know, you went and made something happen, you know, throughout your path. You know what I mean?
I don't know if that running that paint crew said much about me as it did the people he had on the crew.
Well, you were above them. So
Turned out that way, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same way today.
Plus, I was a pretty good painter.
You were above them. You were leading. You were leading by example, right? So you get a job. She gives you a job. You paint her house accidentally by chance. You get a job. You're like, hey, I'm a teacher, not a starving artist, but a starving teacher. Man, how is that today? Starving teachers. Oh wow, it's pretty often.
Well, so 10 years. I taught junior high for 10 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
10 years.
And I started off. So you had a junior high. So I was looking to get a junior high basketball job because we're literally starting at the bottom here because my ambition was to, again, coach in college.
Yeah.
And so I started off coaching intramurals, like 8th grade intramural team.
What's that, like intramural?
It's not the official school team.
So you didn't even get the official school team?
Well, the official school team didn't start until 9th grade. So 7th and 8th was intramural. So it was like JV, you just call it. I don't know. But for junior high.
Might as well just call it PE.
Well, yeah, we had a good team. I had some talent on that team, but it was just, and then, so I'm just looking at that path to eventually get to where I thought I wanted to go. And it wasn't, I started to realize this isn't going to really be totally up to me. You know, in that system, a lot of it's who you know, and when somebody retires and where
you got to be in the right place at the right time.
All of that.
Yeah, because it's like next in line unless someone really screws something up.
Yeah, and be willing to move around and all those kinds of things. And what I realized, I guess, maybe after a couple of years of coaching the intramurals is like, maybe this isn't really what I want to do. I mean, the coaching would have been fine, but I had to teach to go along with the coaching.
Yeah.
Which wasn't bad. I mean, I didn't mind the teaching. And I ended up doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
But I just knew that I wasn't going to do this forever.
The coaching.
The teaching.
The teaching.
Or the coaching.
Or the coaching.
Yeah.
What was bad about the teaching?
You know, I can't say a really...
Or not say bad, but what wasn't good with you?
Well, it's limited, right?
Yeah.
When you start teaching, you sign your contract. And you sign a contract for, I think back then, I signed my first contract for like $22,000 a year or something. So,
what year was this?
93.
Okay.
And then you're on a scale, a salary schedule. So the years of experience you move up, and then number of credits you take. So it's the scale, and at the very top of that scale, I think back then I remember I was saying I'm going to top out at $53,000.
What position is that?
The highest.
As a teacher.
Yeah.
Like that's the most you're going to make. $25 an hour.
My doctor's degree.
Yeah.
And I can teach until I retire. And the top of that scale was $53,000. So that's partially.
So it took you 10 years to realize that $53,000 is not enough for me to really buy I can get the house, but not the white picket fence.
It was not going to fulfill my ambition.
Yeah. for sure.
But I did it for 10 years. And I think a lot of that is simply because what I observe now, like I have a different mindset now than I did then.
Yeah.
Is that people just do what a lot of people, not saying everybody, but people just do what they do, and they do it over and over and over and over again. And then it's like, and then that's what they do.
That's that whole wheel, that rat race that you get stuck in, and it's like, it sucks you in because you like you said, is you get a job, it's just enough to pay the bills. You got the bills, you got the car, the house, and you got the job that pays it. So you're like, you don't want to mess that up. And so you get stuck. That's the world, like the government loves that, right? You're stuck. And, but like, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and imagine how many teachers are still stuck. It's terrible, right? They're so underpaid. Like you were underpaid. They're still, I mean, they're barely making that today, the 53,000. I think so. I mean, maybe they're making a couple dollars more.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. You said they're underpaid.
It's like 30 years later.
So I was a teacher, right? And I had 3 months off, all my holidays. You know, if you compare that to a typical profession, right? You're not getting 3 months off. You're not getting all your holidays. And as a business owner, you're like putting in way more time than all of that. But just a typical job, you're putting in 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year or 48 weeks, whatever it is, right? So do they get underpaid? And then you also factor in, it's like, how valuable are you? Like, are you, like, your teachers, again, now I have a totally different perception now. It's an extremely noble profession. The things I liked about it was I knew when I could connect with a kid and actually teach them something that may be valuable for them, to stick with them, to have an impact somehow, some way in their life, right? Mm-hmm. So that was very rewarding. But for the most part, the public education system is you're teaching people common knowledge, and the only thing you can do with common knowledge is produce common outcomes.
Yeah.
And the common outcome is what you just described. It's paying your bills. And then, and you're in that mental jail yourself, and you think, like, I'm in this 10 years, getting towards the end of the 10 years, right? And you start to like forget that there's other possibilities out there. You get so deep in this rut, and you're like, there's other possibilities out there, but you don't see them because you've like shut yourself in this mental jail.
Well, and like you said, is because I kind of got what you're taking. The whole thing is, do they really work a lot, or do they really know a lot? Because the whole education system is based off like 30, 40, 50-year-old textbook curriculum. I mean, they're changing some of it now, but it's like freaking anybody can do that. That's why they hire anybody nowadays.
Scary.
It's kind of scary because listen, they're the ones teaching our kids. Mm-hmm. That's why we pulled our kids. We pulled them out of the education system like 6 years ago. We tried a private school. They didn't work too good for us because that education system. My youngest daughter, we put her. I think she was 5th grade at that time, and they were a grade behind the private school. I'm paying for this a lot. Mm-hmm. So that was about 6 months. We put her back in our normal school. So she did finish till the beginning of 8th grade. The other ones, we took them out of high school. They did online high school. And so like my youngest is in Great Hearts, because it's so screwed up.
If they get good teachers who aren't in an agenda, right, then I think the other thing, so that'd be a plus, and that's what I would look out for, because I just teach in 10 years. You get a different perspective, right?
Yeah, you're inside of it.
And so you're inside of it. And the biggest thing that I noticed with kids, especially junior, I taught social studies, government and geography and whatnot. 8th graders was the main grade that I taught. But what I noticed is, so they're coming out of elementary school, and then they get into junior high, and immediately, like, some of the kids, you can tell this is a good kid, and they have, they've got, they're pretty straight arrow, and they study and they have good values and come from a good background. And when it gets shuffled, the deck gets shuffled in junior high, and then they're going to go start hanging around different kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll take a kid that like got great grades, was never in trouble, and they just start hanging around with the wrong crowd for a very short amount of time, and it can go downhill quick. And that was the thing I noticed.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me when so I always say I was a good kid that liked to do bad things. I grew up bad, right? But I was super smart. And so when I moved to Maryvale, right before 5th grade started. So I think right before I turned 11. And so I'm still a good kid, right? I liked girls. I liked to see bad things. I didn't do very much bad things, but I liked it because my mom, like, everyone was bad around me, but I wasn't quite there yet, right? But now you put me in the bad environment, you know?
And
so
you got to fit in.
Exactly. So 5th grade, I'm like the smartest kid in the school. 6th grade, I'm the smartest kid. You know, hey, Chris is going to most likely to succeed type thing. 7th grade, Chris's your teachers are telling me, Chris, you're a piece of crap. Nothing, you know. 8th grade is like, you're done, Chris. I was right, you know, right. I told people because I was adopted or my stepdad, whatever. Hold on. That's all on TV or on the podcast. So
we don't edit that out.
Nah, we don't care.
All right.
I was telling someone the other day, I said, now granted, imagine if something changed in my life, but so 3rd and 4th grade, I went to probably one of the better schools in the city. It was in the Madison School District. So that would have been like 89, 90. They were a really good school district. And so, I got really good, really smart, I was exposed to that. Right. And so that's how I went to the ghetto, the hood, and now I'm the smartest dude there. Right. And I said, what if we would have stayed there at the Madison School District? Now, granted, I wouldn't have kids and wouldn't be here. I don't know what would be happening, but the outcome would have changed for sure because I wouldn't have went through a lot of years of hardship. You know what I mean? And maybe that was my destiny to go through hardship. But just like you said, that's the problem with the school system is someone good can turn instantly to someone bad. It can change quick. And now it's even different because they're exposed to different things and different beliefs, different ideologies,
I mean, this is the early mid-90s, right? We're talking about.
It wasn't as bad as
no.
It wasn't even nothing compared to, like, because everyone, you had the flag up, you said your Pledge of Allegiance. You got in trouble. When I went to 6th grade, they stopped. That was the year they stopped smacking kids, or 5th grade, I think. So probably around the time you started is when they stopped. But you still went to the office. You still got in trouble. Like all these
Detention.
things. Yeah, these like you want to be a jackbutt? Go home for the day. You know what I mean? And then you got in trouble at home, right? And today it's like when we took my daughter out of school, the youngest, I was done when her teacher took down the American flag and put up a rainbow flag. I was done. I was like, I'm done. Because you can believe however you want to believe and live however you want to live. But don't put it on no one else.
Right.
And it's the same thing as like, if you want to do drugs in your own house, I don't do it all you want. That's your own thing. Like, I'll pray for you. You want to kill yourself, do it. Just don't give it to no one else. Right?
That's why I was talking about the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an agenda now. And we didn't, well, there was an agenda then. Everything was all definitely left-leaning, liberal slant, and I was the odd teacher out of that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'd be the teacher in the lunchroom where all the other teachers were bitching about stuff and whatnot,
you were in the middle of the conversation,
and they would complain about their pay, and I'm like, that was a big topic among teachers. They would complain about their pay, and I would be like, I don't remember when I signed my contract anybody holding a gun to my head, to sign this contract and teach here. You're free to go. And so, but again, that's that mental jail that they're all in.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I guess when I realized, okay, I need to start entertaining other things, was when okay, so Thanksgiving would roll around. We got all our holidays off. The Monday of the Thanksgiving week, right? We would get out of school half a day Wednesday or whatever. And I remember specifically thinking this to myself, be like, oh man, I can't wait until Wednesday. And I'm like, hold it. I don't know. I must have just saw a statistic on this recently before that. Like you live on the planet. If you live an average lifespan, right?
Yeah.
Like it's 29,000 days. Something like that.
Okay.
You can do the math on that, but 29,000 days. If I have 29,000 days, if I live an average lifespan, and that's my time on the planet, I just wished away 2 days. Like I wish it was Wednesday and it was Monday, and I just wished away 2 days, and then I started like feeling like I'm wishing away my days to get to Friday or to get to whatever, and it's like I think that's when you know that it's time to go.
Yeah, they got you.
Yeah. So anyway, I got an offer from a friend of mine who owned an insurance agency.
Nice.
To come work in his agency.
So what year was that?
2002.
So 2002, your buddy's like, hey, come try this out.
Yep.
We know you're hating life over there.
You know, I really wasn't hating life. It wasn't like I wasn't like frustrated.
So were you super happy?
No, I wasn't happy, but I knew I wasn't going to do that forever. So here comes an offer. So I'm open to it. And, you know, the offer was, so now you're going from a public salary to now I'm getting into the private business, you know, and so the offer I had was the same amount of money that I was making currently teaching, and then by the end of the year it'd be about the same as like if I hit the top of that pay scale.
So you were teaching for 10 years and you get offered a position with no experience, 10 years teaching, you get offered a position, no experience, for the same amount of money after 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it's not just the same amount of money, it's the opportunity.
It's opportunity to scale up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I remember sitting there the first day. I was sitting in my office, and it literally hit me. Like I remember thinking this, just kind of looking up and going, "This is open ended. It's up to me."
Yeah.
Like in teaching, you just sign that contract and you're good. All you've got to do then is not get fired.
All you got to do is worry about Wednesday.
Yeah, right. You just don't get you signed the contract. You made your 35,000, whatever it was, for the year, and if you don't get fired, you're good.
Yeah.
But that was it. That's all you're going to make. And you might make the same amount the next year, and the next year, whatever, minimal, incremental increases or whatnot. But in this, it was like, it really hit me. Like it hit me that this is open-ended now. Like I'm in control. I can make as much money as I want.
Boom. Entrepreneurship. Capitalism. Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm sure you went through something similar.
I was never a teacher, bro.
Well, when you had that,
just kidding.
When it occurred to you that, wow, I can build this as big as I want.
Yeah, you know what? Like, so for me, you know, I started in drywall construction because I didn't go to school, right? And I had a good aha. I always wanted to do better in all these good things, but I had a really aha moment. Was when I went to I guess I would say a trip, and there was other drywall companies as well, just drywall companies only, and there was probably 20 of us, maybe 40, 50 people total, all paid, exclusive. I took Felicity. She wouldn't let me go on my own. It was chaos. I don't know if you've ever been on those man trips. They're chaos. And so she was like, there was 3 wives, and the 3 husbands were blackballed, you know. Anyways, I don't care.
You're on a short leash.
Yeah, exactly. And which is good. So I went there, and, you know, I'm talking to all these other either CEO, CFO, president, whoever it was from that company, right? And I'm like, oh, what do you do? How much do you guys do? How much do you guys do? You know, I think at the time we were doing 4 million or 6 million. And I talked to the main guy from I think they're called California Drywall or something. They're huge, right? I talked to a guy all these big companies that they're like in Seattle, Texas, California.
Well, this is when you had already been in Extreme. Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm talking to these guys, and so I knew we could make some money, right? Because we're already in the millions. But these companies were making 100, 200, 300, 400 million. And I'm like, holy geez, I can do that. I just knew I wanted to live a really good life. I want to buy property. I still want to do the things, but I didn't realize where it could actually, the vehicle, it could take me, it could take me, right? That was a big aha moment for me. And I would say like, before an aha moment, before that was when I met my biological dad. I met him when between 25 and 26 years old, and I wanted more. I was working for someone. I wanted more, and I met him, and he had more, and it showed me like, oh, what I want, I can actually attain. Because then he was like, hey, Chris, you think like me. We're like the same guy, except years apart. And I barely meet him, and that was like a light bulb. Like, man, and when he said like, you think just like me, and the whole time I'm like, why do I think more than because even though I was like doing bad things, I wanted more. Mm-hmm. Like you, I was trying to lead, even if it was bad. I was like trying to be the best at that. You know what I mean?
You're competitive.
Whatever it was, yeah, whatever it was. And so those aha moments is like, man, you could do more, you can be more, because like you said, your surroundings, usually our surroundings, unless you're brought up in, a wealthy environment, your surroundings are not that good, and we have to be aware of that, especially I grew up in impoverished areas, some people call it a ghetto or whatever, the hood or whatever. And so when you grow up in that type of thing, or a little city, you're not exposed to anything. So you only know what you know. And it's till you get the aha moment to like, well, I can do better. I can do more. Because, okay, it's cool. Like you're teaching, you're doing good, you're making some money, you got a good salary, and which is better than some people, right? And so, but then the aha moment, like you said, is like, oh, I can do more. I just got to put a couple more hours in a day. I just got to talk to a few more people a day. You know what I mean? And I wish so many more people would get that. You just got to do a little bit more. You got to think a little better and expose yourself to something new.
And not just a little bit more, but maybe a little bit different.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because we don't know what we know until we're exposed to what we want to know. You know what I mean? Like, what is it we want? Like I'm learning different things now because I want to learn those things. Mm-hmm. If you would have asked me 20 years ago, I wouldn't have want to learn it.
You mentioned this a couple minutes ago about your environment.
Yeah.
Right. So I wouldn't trade the environment I grew up in. And we weren't wealthy at all. In fact, my parents were divorced.
You're from Gothenburg.
And they were divorced when I was a sophomore going on being a junior. And my dad really wasn't, he just kind of exited the scene at that point.
Just gone?
Yeah, just pretty much. Yeah. I mean, he was still around, but just not involved. So, and then my mom she just was a homemaker, right? So she didn't really have any skills. She ended up going to cosmetology school and supporting us that way, but it was a struggle. So I remember just she had overdrafts at the bank like every month.
Survival.
$600 overdraft. I had, I didn't realize this at the time, because it wasn't bad. Oh, you want me to move this? Okay, there we go. It wasn't bad. I just didn't know it. I had one or two pair of jeans, and I would do my own laundry because like you just didn't have a lot, but you didn't really know it. And I think growing up like that, I didn't really have a safety net. I couldn't screw up because no one was there to bail me out. But I think that was a great teacher because with my own kids today, it's different. And I'm raising my own. I have two boys. One's 23 now and one's 20. And so we've, it's been a entirely different. You know, we've done pretty well, and it's not the childhood that I grew up in, and so it changes you. I think it just changes you, and it's more difficult when you grow up with things and you don't want for those things, and they're provided. I think you're not as hungry, or you're not as careful, or you're not as, whatever. If everything, I can screw up and I'll be okay here still, or whatever.
It's true.
So I think there's a lot to that. And so I think sometimes when you grow up in a more privileged environment, it's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah. That's what, like, statistics, what on it, like I think you're Gen X. You're Gen X.
What is Gen? What's the cutoff on that?
What's cut off Antonio and Gen X? I think you're Gen X. So I'm a Gen X. Gen X's are like kind of blamed for these kids today, because we worked so hard for what we didn't have to give to our kids that we're screwing them up, spoiling them. We're working hardcore. Not every Gen X, some are lazy. But that's it, and it's not like intended, because you just want to give something different, not realizing like, holy jeez, am I causing something wrong here?
Yeah.
And it's hard. Then what do? Act like you're poor and run them through the rags? Like, I thought about that at like one point. I'm like, should we just move? Me and my wife talked about, like, should we just move back to a little house? This is like a couple of years ago. Like, just a little house and just like live like tight, like, and really show them,
build our bank account and portray this other
life. Yeah. Like, you just go buy bologna and the cheapest bread, and some
Mac and
noodles or
cheese.
something. Yeah. Some cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But then why? So then it's like, well, we work so hard for what we want, so, and for us, I think we work hard, and you want to reward yourself and your wife, right? Your wife first, and your children are the byproduct, right? So they get to see the reward and be part of the reward, right? And it's all unintentional.
I'm sure there's not too many people feeling bad for us, but it's tough, right?
It's tough.
Third world problems, right?
Third world problems.
Like, it's they don't grow up worrying about the next meal or the latest
Nothing.
shoes or whatever.
Nothing.
But just in hindsight, looking at it, it's tough to know. As you don't go to parenting class. Like, there's not too many parenting classes out there, so you're just doing what you do, and you're doing the best you know how. And
Yeah.
And then at some point, sometimes maybe you think that, well, I do know this. This is like this has been revealed to me over and over. The more you give somebody, the more they expect it.
Yeah.
And the less they appreciate it.
Absolutely true. That's powerful.
And it just, it just keeps showing up over and over again.
Well, it's that whole enabling system. We're doing it to our own children, and it's no different than the government doing it to,
Yep.
different areas of town, or different type of people, or lower class, lower income. I don't want to call them lower class because they're not lower class, but lower income. It's the same thing. You give people just enough, keep them happy, and they don't know what it's like to have to work for it.
So then I'm like wondering, so is the advantage really a disadvantage?
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be. That's why you see a lot of successful people, not all, but there's a lot that have messed up kids. You see pastors, because they're working so hard trying to build a church. A lot of their kids get messed up because that's what's happening. They're not doing nothing bad at home. You're just not paying attention. Mm-hmm. And it's all unintentional, right? You see the athletes, you don't really hear about them because they don't publicize it, but you hear about it when you hear about, like, this person's son died, or this person's son's on crack and overdose, or movie stars, or you see it. Mm-hmm. And it's none of it's intentional, but it's like, it's the byproduct of it. Like, there's always some sort of casualty. There's you gotta kind of, it sucks to say, when you're building a business or a brand or something, you are giving up something. I don't care who it is. They can sit here and post whatever the hell they want to post. They're giving up something at some point. You are. if you're going to stay at the office 10 hours, there's 10 hours you're not with your family because you're tired. So what, are you going to go home with 3 hours? Is that really the same as the 10 hours? I give more time to our employees than I do my own children. That's the truth, right? And so you're giving up something. And so the goal is to try to not give up something too long and let it be a negative effect on that person or thing or whatever it may be. You know what I mean?
Well, the balance is always a challenge, right? Yeah.
Tough.
If it's a balance, then yeah, and again, we're living in a different time, right? So my two boys I see them trying to figure it out. So they're both in construction now, and I started off painting, so I kind of know that. And we have a different perspective. I can say, oh, you're just at the beginning of this. You got like a while to figure this out and see what you don't want to do maybe, or what you want to do, and figure all this out. But there's certain things that just fundamentally you're going to have to figure out
the hard way.
Yeah, just like the integrity and honesty and being trustworthy and all those kinds of things, and having dignity, and those fundamental foundational things are what you hope to instill into them, and so they can take those things and as it's just society changes and whatnot, as that rolls along, they can at least have that foundation. But I don't know, it's I thought having kids was tough, but having adults is tough.
Adult children. Well, and like today it's different. So when I was younger, when I was younger, I was exposed to a lot of the areas were all gangs. And so, the parents wouldn't let their kids come out. I remember having a friend, and he became a lawyer. I don't know what he's doing today, but he was the only one that became like a true professional out of probably the whole Maryville area. Maybe, I don't know. And I remember at some point his parents stopped letting him come with us, right? And so you stopped your kids from going anywhere. That was the protection, right? Today, you don't even have that because it comes to you on the phone
That's it.
and the iPad. It all comes to you. There's no, you literally, so, what we would do is we would put like certain protections on the phones, or we have Life 360, all these things. But then the kids still get past all that, right? And so now it's like, well, how do you really protect, And especially if you're working hard, building a business, or trying to get that next position, whatever that bump is, and like something's attacking your family.
When we grew up, we didn't have the phone, right? So
would you guys have like rock and chisel?
I think pagers was like the big thing back then.
Spell upside down.
Yeah.
Hello.
Right. I don't think I ever had a pager though, but
you never had one?
I don't think I ever had one.
Wow.
But we didn't have the phone. So when you grew up and you were a kid, the association, like we talked about, is you end up becoming who you associate with. I mean, it's just that there's no stopping that. It's like because you have to adopt the standards of the group you're with, right? If you're an athlete, then you hang out with the athletes. If you're from the other side of the tracks, we used to say, then you hang out with those kids, hoodlums and the cheerleaders and popular people and the nerds, whatever group it is that you hang out with. You had to conform to the unspoken rules of that group.
Yeah.
And it was somewhat protected. And as soon as you started to do things outside of the rules of the group, you worked your way out of it. It wasn't anything that was like, announced or whatever. We took a vote and you're out. Like it just would naturally happen.
Yeah.
But the group was confined with certain, whatever it was that they had in common to keep it together, right? Enter the phone. And now, like nowadays, you can have that same group, but other elements now are intruding on those groups, right? With Snapchat and with all those things. And so now you're getting different ideas and different standards and whatnot are getting introduced into these groups. And I think it just deteriorates all of them.
Yeah.
Because then we end up with the lowest of the low standards. Because sometimes you'll hear stuff from kids today and you're like, where did you get that? Where did that come from?
Yeah,
like,
no, totally. So, these days you're running the insurance business. What exactly do you do and what do you offer at Gilbert Insurance?
Well, I can go back and kind of expand on how I got into that.
Yeah.
And because it's an evolution of what.
Oh yeah.
what
So
I do.
yeah, let's go back because you said you got offered a job. We went off on a big tangent. You got offered a job and you're like, I'm gonna make the same amount of money. So let's go on for that.
So it was with it was my best friend at the time, and it was with a direct writer or captive insurance company, right? Like a State Farm or Farmers or Allstate. It wasn't any of those companies, but it was one of those companies. And I was a producer, so sales. I was hired on to do sales and some other stuff. So I had a salary plus commission, and I was on this draw. So as soon as my commissions built up, then I would go on full commission.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the arrangement. So, and then that carrier had this appetite for contractors, and the independent marketplaces, which what I am now, right? I own an independent insurance agency where we have access to multiple carriers and whatnot. So, but we only had one carrier with this direct writer, but it had this pretty broad appetite for commercial insurance. As most of those direct writers, you know them as home and autos, right? All the commercials. You know, you think of it more as like if you see a Farmer's commercial, it's, you know, our home and auto, and it's not really for our business, and not really for our big construction company business. But this carrier had an appetite for that, and I recognized that, and I just started hitting it. And so the independent marketplace had gone into a hard market, meaning the rates, carriers started dropping out of the marketplace, and the only options that were left were surplus markets, which means that the premiums jumped, doubled, tripled, and whatnot. And the carrier I was with still had an appetite for those. So all I had to do was get in front of these large construction companies. And I knew if they just looked at a quote from us, we were going to save them a lot of money.
Okay.
And so it started off like, so I'm starting to target some of the largest construction companies in Arizona, some of the bigger home builders, custom home builders and whatnot. So I started there, and really it was easy. All I had to do was get in front of them and say, hey, you haven't seen an offer from us because, you know, you're with an independent agent. So you've seen offers from them and their carriers, but you haven't seen an offer from this carrier. Because all the other agents for this direct writer were home and auto agents.
Yeah.
So they weren't making offers to large construction companies. They just didn't know to do it for whatever reason. But I was doing it. So I had built this kind of a bigger ambition, and I just knew I had to get in front of them. And when I got in front of them, we would start offering quotes, and we would save companies $100,000, $150,000.
And they're like, holy guacamole.
And it was like, you don't really have to be good if you're gonna.
You're saving the money. They're going over.
And I didn't. I was new. I didn't know a lot about insurance, but I did know one thing, that if I got the opportunity to put a quote on the table, I'm going to save you a lot of money. And so I hit that pretty hard, and I was persistent. I'd get feedback like, you're pretty persistent. So that was the one thing that I was very persistent, and wrote in a short amount of time. So our agency became the top producing agency in the whole country, with a national 250 company. So
wow.
And it was primarily because of these large construction companies that we were writing.
So how long were you with that company?
So that was from 2000. Okay, so then you'll remember the market tanked in about 2007, 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd built up a nice, fairly large book of business, about $7 million of premium in about 4 or 5 years. And I was doing very well. And then things churned. So with our carrier, I had the one option, and before we were saving these companies a lot of money, and then their market started to soften up, and their market started to soften up. Mine started to harden up, and now it like flip-flopped.
Yeah. And
so we were losing accounts, and that whole year when the market started to really tank, I knew it was just going to be a bloodbath, and I knew I had to, I got to go independent. So that's what spurned me into the independent world. So that's when I started Gilbert Insurance Group, was in 2009.
2009, the same year I started.
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing else anyways, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're broke.
Yeah. And so that starts. So when you leave, I had to leave my entire book of business. Like I didn't own it. It was the carriers.
Yeah.
So I had to walk away, and I brought staff over onto the new entity, and I mean, every month I remember this number is $20,000. I had to hit that $20,000 to pay for everything.
Now, 20,000 sales or
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
Which
scary.
which was a lot at that time, but it's nothing at this time.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. But then when you don't have any revenue coming
Yeah,
in,
you got no money, you're broke.
Right.
Yeah, you have to make money.
I had no clients.
Yeah. Which that's like, that's the drive. You know, again, people don't know that, right? So like, you were put in a situation that forced you to have to go out and build. That's the difference, right? And you took that opportunity, you ran with it.
It was scary.
Of course.
Very risky. Well, I didn't necessarily see it as a bigger. Looking back on it, it seemed like it was really risky. But at the time, I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to lose these accounts to these carriers, and so I'm going to go independent. I'm going to get appointments with these carriers, and then I'm going to go back after all my old clients.
Yeah.
And that was my plan. I did have somewhat of a business plan there, and so I remember the first week I'm driving around all my, former clients and grabbing their insurance book, and we'd quote it up, and so we were doing pretty well for a few months, 2 or 3 months, and then the carrier game planned. So your accounts, what happens when you're in that situation is the accounts go to other agents that are with that direct carrier, right? And now they're their accounts.
What? Really?
Yeah, they keep the accounts.
The carrier.
The carrier keeps the accounts. So when I went independent, I had no clients.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. So, but my game plan was, okay, I'm going to go back and after these accounts, and I'm going to save money because that's why I was losing before, right?
Yeah.
So now I have the carriers that I'm going to go back. Well, they went, and after I had like 2 or 3 months of rewriting that business back into my business and taking that business from them, they went and had a strategy session. They went and refiled all their rates with the state, so meaning that they could drop their rates.
Lower it, yeah.
And now
Take them all back.
And now it flip flopped again. And now where I was like maybe 20% lower, now I'm 20% higher.
Like that.
And like that
because now you're going against a bigger company.
With having to sell.
Actually, you're going against a really big company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having to survive, bring in $20,000 of revenue a month to just survive.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah. So that was my start. I think I heard you started with like $2 or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we went broke.
Yeah.
We were broke. Yeah, no, that's exactly. We start with $2. It gets hard when you're on your own, and especially at that time. I mean, you figure a lot of people went bankrupt. People were killing themselves. They changed industries. All kinds of crazy stuff happened, right? And so we were broke, just like you. We weren't broke. Actually, you were making money. I was broke. Because it went, it slowed down, and in construction it went to nothing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like it went to nothing. I remember, I'm managing like 3, 4, 5 job sites, or a big, massive job site, or whatever it was. And next thing you know, I'm having to lay off everybody. And I think before we went on our own, I think at that company it was there was probably like 8 of us left, maybe. You know what I mean?
When you went through. So when I started in insurance, it's 2002, and then the economy just started to take off. I remember just bumping payrolls and adding vehicles, and with the fleets of vehicles would be, they'd be adding vehicles every week. Like, and this is the company that like you're working for right now. So those are that same type of company. And then the market tanks, and it just went hard, like backwards.
Yeah, that's exactly what it did.
And so you were on that side of it, but when you delete trucks and you drop, I remember we had one drywall contractor doing about $12 million of payroll, and in 3 months they were down to $1 million.
Like that, no more houses.
Yeah. And so what that does to the revenue, I mean, we were along that same ride that you were on, because my whole book was construction.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's true. You're on the same ride.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because they're gone. They're out. I remember when we started, and so for a couple of years I wanted to start, and I just wasn't ready. I was young. I started right before I turned 29. But I remember, because it was slow, right? And everyone, I'm doing good. I'm killing it. I can build a job like back on my hand, big, massive job. I can help, design the details, everything. And everybody's like, Chris, start your company, start your company, start your company. And, we'll hire you, we'll hire you, we'll hire you. And then by the time I got to it, I had to get through a bunch of red tape. And by the time I got to it, and I'm calling all these people back, and I'm like, hey, I got the license. I'm ready to go. It's probably like a year later or something. And they're like, I don't work for that company no more. Or I'm not working right now. Or, what?
Curveball.
Yeah. I'm not a PM no more. I'm a field super. I have no more pool, Chris. It was a huge curveball.
Well, and there weren't any jobs.
Yeah. So everyone's like, they're shifting. Like almost everyone went down a role, a position, something, or 2 or 3 levels. And I'm already at the bottom anyways, but there was literally not a single person that I knew at the time that would or could give me a job.
I started my business because I basically had to.
Yeah.
At that time. Otherwise I was going to lose every one of the accounts
forced.
we had.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, all those accounts are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But were you like almost forced to start then, or was it your luxury of when you were going to start, or
no? I was forced. So for us is the economy went down, and I remember my old boss. I already had this desire, but it's a fear too. There's a fear in there, and he basically he started deducting my pay, and I'm like the main guy, right? I'm his best guy, plain and simple. And then so then there's hours, there's no work. And now it's like, now I'm getting a half a week's check, 2 days, 1 day, because there's no work. And he had one job we were doing, but it was like, we can do some and then stop, do some, then stop, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, we have to do something. And you know what? And him and I was already unhappy with him because we had just because what was happening, right? And then he whacked me, and I was like, it's time, like I got to do something, So I was just like, I'm done, and we I thought I was gonna go into I thought I was gonna call these people. I thought I was gonna go and just start this massive company. And even when I told him, he was laughing at me. He's like, you'll be back. I'm like, screw you, dude. I ain't be back. And I had no clue what was about to happen, right? And for me, that my first challenge was, because I have a felony from when I was 18, the ROC wouldn't give me my license. Mm. And so as soon as I went to get my license, they're like, you ain't getting a license. I'm like, I just quit my job. They're like, well, go ask for it back. I'm like, there's no work. I literally just fought with my old boss. You think he's gonna hire me back? They're like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sitting there crying, like, oh my God, what do I do?
That's what I was doing when that other company changed their rates.
Then when they whacked you, yeah.
They changed the rates.
Yeah, because they're like, oh my, and like Aaron, I remember we were like, because I couldn't get my license. I was trying to get a job, and there's just nobody was hiring, right? And I was like, I don't know what it was, and so I'm trying to get any odds and end jobs. We're buying and selling washing machines, refrigerators. I'm buying stuff from yard sales, reselling. We're selling anything we can do to get in, and at the same time, I'm like, I'm not gonna get food stamps. We're gonna get through this thing. You know what I mean? At the same time, my in-laws lost their house. They moved in with us. I had just got married, so I literally just got married. The economy tanks. Felicity's pregnant. Her in-laws, they lose their house. My brother-in-law and his wife, their kids, lose their place, and it's all of us in one house. Broke. And everybody's broke.
And I imagine like the burden, you felt like you're the guy that has to hold it all together.
It was crazy. The whole thing is crazy because, again, I'm newly married. We got all these things going, and I'm also just learning them. Like, I'm learning how they are. Yeah. I've never lived with them. So now you got people in your own house. They live different. They, maybe they're dirtier or whatever. want different types of food, and we ain't got no food anyways. So it's like, you're learning what it is. And yeah, there was just this pressure, like, what the hell did I do? Like, what do I do? And that's where prayer comes in. All these things come in. It's like, God, like, show me something. And then I'm getting pressure. Like, so now I'm all in now. I'm like, I'm going to start this company. I'm going to fight with the RLC. I start like learning everything. I didn't know how to use a computer either. Every night I'm using a computer to learn it. I'm creating a logo. I'm starting to look, as I'm selling one washing machine, I'm buying one tool. And everybody's like, you got to get a job, Chris. You need to figure something out. This construction thing ain't working. I'm like, screw you. There was a pressure because now I'm the new husband, and I'm rough. I'm in boots. My wife was flashy. I'm just flashy. I'm the oddball, right? And there was some pressure. There was a lot of pressure. But persistence, and what me, I believe, like with prayer, it's like things come to fruition, if we put our mind to it. What do you got?
Oh, you said persistence, and that was I had mentioned earlier that was the one thing that people told me about that, because those at the time, I remember being in the situation like, this is not ideal, right? This is a little intense. But you were just so busy, like, because you didn't have the luxury to like wig out about it.
Yeah.
You just had to get things done, right? You had to learn how to run a business.
Yeah, we didn't know nothing.
I had to learn how to run a business. I was just
a salesman.
I was just sales, and then
you're a salesman.
Now all of a sudden you have all these business considerations.
You have employees. You have taxes. You have your own insurances. You have your vehicles. I
have all these carriers. I didn't know how to manage any of that, and run payroll, and do all these things, and you had to learn. And then I had to take a test for health and life, and like study for this big test to get licensed with that, and like all these things. I think you and I were going through that at the exact same time.
It's the same time. You would have been my teacher when I was in junior high, and we were going through the same business struggles at the same exact time.
Yeah, and
it's ironic.
And looking back on it, it seems more scary now thinking about it than it was going through it. And I just remembered like thinking, this is not good, but I just got to put my head down. And then I remember saying to myself, okay, I've got decisions I have to make, because I can't not make them, right? I'm in charge. And I remember telling myself, I'm just going to do the best I can with what I know. I'm going to get whatever help I think I need to get to make the best decision I can make, and just keep moving forward. And I remember telling myself, because maybe a little bit of my nature before would be to procrastinate something, but I'm like, and I can't procrastinate this. Like I have to just like decision, and I just got to keep my head down and just keep going. I remember just thinking that that's the only way I'm going to get through this.
Yeah, just keep going, keep plowing.
So here was the quote that I remember at the time. This like really resonated with me. It's a Calvin Coolidge statement, and it says, "Nothing in the world will take the place of persistence. Talent will not. The world is full of unsuccessful people with talent. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. The slogan, 'Press on,' has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race." And so it was just pressing on, and it was just being persistent. And if I look back on it, that's how I got through it.
And look where you are now.
And it's nothing like what I do today.
Of course. You're good.
So, it's a different philosophy.
You've learned, you've grown. What do you attribute some of that, like, because we think in the same, we kind of think similar, very similar. What do you attribute that whole mind shift, that shift in your mind? I know you're part of a group. Mm-hmm. Is that where you kind of got that mind shift, or did it happen a little bit before that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so it's called the Aji Network, and I'm not here to plug it or anything, but it was a huge change in my whole philosophy and orientation. Like, mm-hmm. So how I would approach, in sales and the insurance marketplace, you have this approach, and it was that persistence. It was like, just, work hard. Okay. So if I did this well this year and I wanted to raise my goals for the next year, I just had to make more calls. Mm-hmm. I had to go to more, meetings where I was going to meet more people. I had to like work hard. So I had to make 100 calls to get 10 appointments to write 2 accounts. Right. Yeah. So that was like, so then
2%.
Yeah. And then you like, but that's no fun, because at some point you tap out. And basically what that is, it's like, going back to what I said earlier, it's like just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And just doing the same thing, only doing it harder to get ahead. And it's like, so it shifted from that. And I was always willing to put the work in, and I was fairly good at what I did. But it just got to the point where it's like, man, I don't want to work this hard. I don't want to have to be this persistent. So the change that Aji helped me with. So how I got involved in that is, as one of my clients who was a plumber and went through that same deal with the economy we were talking about, was doing pretty good, I don't know, 6 to 8 million, and built this, like, his company was just going crazy. And so I called him and said, "Hey, Mike, what are you doing?" And so he said, "Let's go to lunch." And he introduced me to the Aji Network. And what that is it's a philosophy. It's a business philosophy. And it teaches, basically it's designed to teach you how to earn into the 1% and how to outcompete your competitors. And I mean, there's a lot to it, but just quickly, but it changed my orientation. So it changed how that, just working real hard to, okay, now we have to design and invent. Like, you can work real hard and sell an offer. And if the offer's just common, right? If it's common, people they become indifferent to it. And then you have to work higher and heavier numbers to sell a common product.
Yeah.
And so the approach then changed to, okay, well, we have to design and invent new offers, right? New offers that have a higher value than, and in my, maybe it's like this in construction too, but the traditional value that people interpret is the price, right? They want the lowest bid, right? You're up against that.
Yep, all the time.
Right, so you have other drywall painting contractors, and they're putting in bids, and you're going to have some GCs that that's all they're interested in. Oh, this is lower.
Yeah, most.
And that's the only value that they see, is in the lowest price. And so the mindset change, or the philosophy change, was, okay, we need to design and invent offers that have other value, right? And so the thing you design and invent is, we call it a marginal utility. So marginal utility, you have the common offer, but then you design and invent something that's of value outside of the common offer, and that becomes part of your offer. You're going to still offer, insurance, proper coverage at the competitive price, but now we're also going to design and invent, something that may take care of a new concern or a different concern than the traditional offer takes care of, or it'll help somebody avoid a breakdown that the traditional offer doesn't help you avoid, or it'll open up an opportunity for you that the traditional offer won't open up.
Yeah.
And so, the value then becomes this skill or ability to design and invent these marginal utilities that have value, that can outcompete the common offer. And so that was the shift. And so then it goes from being like persistent and press on and high numbers, a numbers game, of peddling this common offer, into designing and inventing more valuable offers. And then you don't have to, you don't have to work as hard that way, but you work differently. Now you're learning.
You're not just an insurance company. You're an insurance company operating at a high level, and you have these added whatever
marginal utilities.
Marginal utilities. Software, whatever it is, an extra tool in the toolbox that the other guy just don't have, right? And so, what is that extra tool, that marginal utility that you have?
So we've designed a couple offers. I'm a construction insurance agent. We focus on construction. And so let me go back to the orientation. So the orientation is, I always say our orientation is our number one competitive advantage. And I could say that and you'd be like, what does that mean? Like, I don't understand that. So orientation is, your tendency and how you're going to act, right? So if you might have people who are oriented around, their orientation is they're generous, right? Or you might have others who are oriented around they're tight with their money, right? And let's say you're going to go to dinner and you're with a friend whose orientation is they're generous, and then you have an orientation of a friend who's tight,
Yeah.
right? So it's important to be able to understand those orientations, because it tells you how they're going to act in future situations, right? And so the future situation is the check's going to come from the waiter.
Yeah.
And now you can predict how the one guy's going to act who's like tight. He's going to like, oh, I'm going to hit the restroom.
Yeah, he's gonna check his phone and avoid even looking that way at the bill.
And you can predict that the generous, he's going to grab for the check.
Yeah.
And so to be able to locate how somebody's oriented is a key thing. And it's something that it was taught to me that like it's helped me understand that. So the orientation opens up this space then. So our orientation now is, the first thing is like, you're a person.
Okay.
Right? You're not an account.
Yeah.
Or you're not a big account. You're a person who has to compete in a highly competitive marketplace. And the only reason you want to talk to me, the insurance guy, is because you just need help.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a new friend. You need help. You have exposure, right?
I did need a friend.
Well, okay. Well, it's a good thing we became friends, right? But really, you just like, the only reason I remember the first time I met you, you didn't seem like you needed a new friend.
What did I do?
You had laser eyes. You came into that conference room and you were like, yeah, I could just say, well, I just know that every time I meet a new prospect, right, or a new potential client, they're indifferent to me. They have this indifference because their experience in insurance it's common, right? Okay, they're going to go out and they're going to give me the lowest bid and the coverage is going to be adequate. And then I'll pick the lowest amount because I don't want to pay anymore and I have to for insurance. So that's their indifference. They're indifferent to any other value you might be able to offer them. So they almost just like write you off. And so all the things that you've done now to design and invent these new strategies and these new things, like it just is dismissed right away. So you have to like, not only you have to design those things, but then you have to have narratives around them. Otherwise,
keep them engaged.
Otherwise, they don't get it. They won't interpret this value that you have. So you have to have a narrative to go along with it. So it's this philosophy. So I got to treat you like a human. And the only reason, you just need my help. Mm-hmm. So my help then has to be superior help to outcompete my competitor.
Yeah.
And so that's where you design and invent the superior help, and which gives you more capabilities. And the orientation, like, okay, you're a human, you're not an object. You're not like, so the traditional orientation and the orientation that I had before I adopted this it was I call it a make a sale orientation.
Yeah.
You make the sale and then you move on to make the next sale. Right. And so if that's your orientation almost dictates this, like how you're going to act. Like, so if you're oriented around just making a sale, that's a you concern, right? It's not like the only reason you want to talk to me is for me to help you. It's about your concerns. It's not about my concern of making the sale.
Yeah. Aaron, how can I help you?
What's that?
How can I help you?
How can you help me?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you mean by that question? Like,
I just said that.
Right.
Hey, hold on. Let's go back real quick. So, when we met, you said I had laser eyes.
Yeah, you were. It seemed like
this is like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, it seemed like you had experience, whatever it was, with insurance, and it wasn't good necessarily.
And so I came in laser eye, like
it just seemed you came in kind of intense and
maybe I was just playing like that.
Could be
Tough guy.
Could be.
And then what happened after that?
We just went into our narratives about our philosophy and orientation, and so the things that we've designed and invented, and they're all designed to help, right? So you have concerns, you have these breakdowns, you have opportunities. So our orientation philosophy is to design and invent to take care of your concerns, like to help you, not, and by doing that, and this is it was hard for me to like get this thing. It's almost stepping into a different dimension. It's like, okay, I have to totally take my focus off of me and making the sale. Quit thinking about that.
And what does the customer actually need?
Because you don't care about me. You don't care you don't know how much I'm going to make on a commission. You don't even care. You just want me to help you.
That's the problem with a lot of salesmen today. And forever in time. when I get a salesman come to the office or call me or whatever it is, right? And I instantly know when it's about them.
Yep.
And it's like, dude,
That's their orientation.
yeah, I'm not even like, quit calling me. I wish the best for you, but no, right? Because they're only about themselves. They're only about the sale. And it's like, so we finished building our house, right? We move in.
Beautiful house, by the way.
You should come over and check it out. So the solar, we're thinking about getting solar. We're not sure. Anyway, so I had a guy come over, or Felicity did, someone or whatever, and that same thing.
The solar pitch.
Yeah, and I looked at him laser eye. So I got there like 20 minutes late, right? And Felicity's talking to him, and Felicity's like all happy, and I'm like, this freaking guy, like he's over there trying to sell my wife. Now I'm gonna whoop his butt. You know what I mean? And I just start grilling him. Same laser eye. I'm like, dude, like you're the third guy. I'm like I'm a solar expert by now. I've already studied it. And how many panels? How many watts? What is this? And then because she said, oh, he's gonna give it to us for free. And I'm like, this guy's so full of crap. And I'm like, dude, why would you tell her that? And now I'm like, I ain't buying from you even if you were the cheapest guy, because first of all, there's nothing free, and second, it ain't free. It's the same. It's exactly what you're saying. I love that you're saying that, because in order to be a great salesman, and I'm not a great salesman, but I'm not even a salesman.
You offer help.
Yeah, that's it. And you got to be truthful and trustworthy in the process, right? And it's not like, hey, I'm going to sell you a job, right? For us, we're selling jobs, project contracts, whatever. It's not because I need money. Yeah, we need money to operate? Absolutely. But it's because this is what we're good at, and we want to offer you the service because we know you need someone better. Mm-hmm. We know you need someone to do a great job, right? The byproduct is we get to get paid, right? But the product is what we're actually doing, what we're good at. And these people, I hate a bad salesman.
So going back,
I don't hate them, but I just dislike them.
Well, that's their approach.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Because
it's that old Carsman salesman. It's terrible.
With your solar guy, what triggers me out of that is that, okay, so you identified his orientation.
Yeah,
and his orientation was he was oriented around his own concerns, right? And you, so if I'm treating you like a person, you're just there because you want my help, but because we're people, we can sense when somebody's treating us like an object or they're actually treating us like a person.
Yeah.
Right? We can sense it because we are people, right? And so you sensed, this guy's just treating me like an object. In this case, a vehicle to get himself. I'm just a vehicle to him so he can get what he wants.
Yeah. He don't care what I meant. He don't even care if I have the right. So actually, he was giving me the wrong system. Not enough. It wouldn't have been enough. We would have been stuck with something that was inadequate and it wasn't good for our needs.
That was the change in our orientation and philosophy. And I
love it.
And it's not obvious. I mean, it sounds kind of obvious when you can just talk about it, but it was hard to, it's like that picture, you see those pictures and then, hey, if you stare at this weird, you'll see a whale or something like that. It was like that for me. It was like, wait, this isn't about me. They just want my help.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But it took a while to get that. But that's what I see, not just in my own industry, in insurance. You just that make a sale orientation. But when I'm buying, just like you, the solar guy, like now I can just identify that right away. It's like, we put in a pool several years ago and did the backyard, and I got my 3 bids. But I was looking for different things there. The guy got in the pool with me, and he's acting like he was concerned about my concerns about the pool, right? None of the others did that. They didn't like, oh, let's stand over here and what's it look like over here, and should we have a step here? And we actually got in a pool with me, basically visually, and it's like, this guy gets it. He's like, I'm gonna have to live in this. This is my pool for a long, long time.
That's
the others didn't.
You want to work with those people. Yeah. You'll pay more. Mm-hmm. I know I will.
Well, it's more valuable.
Yeah, because you got my best interest. That's why we switched over to you, because we weren't getting taken care of. We were, what people would call it, we were just a number, right? But we weren't valuable to that prior company, and you place value on us and our needs. that is why we switched you. That's why you guys are amazing, because it's, you service the customer the way they need to be serviced, the way they want to be serviced, not the way you think they need to be serviced. Because even when you and I talk about, or we have meetings, you're asking us what we need. Then you're giving us a suggestion of why we should go with our own decision, or maybe not our decision. So you're guiding us through this. You're not just putting some freaking policy in our lap and saying, here's what it is. You know what I mean? To try to make a good commission. We've gone through this. You'll give me these options, and you're saying, hey, this is why, this is this, this is that. Chris, I think you really need this because this may happen. And I don't think you need this because this probably won't happen, and you're not even in that industry to need that. Right. That's what I like about, you and your whole staff over there.
So the thing about that is, so we make an offer.
Yeah.
Like, and if you talk to my competitor, they would say, we're going to get you some quotes. Right. So we make an offer. The quote is part of the offer. But when you say that, when you say, hey, we're going to get you some quotes, and that's the offer, what you've done is you've just diminished all the value that you're going to bring to it. And now all the value goes to the carrier that produced the lowest quote, right? So the things that we design and invent are all designed to lower exposure so we can leverage that and negotiate better terms and pricing in the marketplace for you. So, like, for example, we have a specific offer, a construction defect strategy. There's contractors that have construction defect claims. They just get drug into them. And so we produce a strategy that helps minimize the negative effects of that and puts them in a much better place in the insurance marketplace for pricing and terms and clean up their loss history and all those things. And so we've produced some pretty significant outcomes for some of our larger contractors that work on track homes. Then for general contractors, we have this offer we call fail-safe. And so a general contractor, they hire all their subcontractors, like your general contractor.
Yeah.
They hire you, and then they get certificates of insurance because you're the exposure to the general contractor, right? You could have an employee that gets hurt and sues the general contractor for an unsafe work environment, and you can't stop that employee from suing them, and they can't stop it either. But what you can have is all the insurance in place, so then when they get sued, they're going to tender it back to you.
Yeah, we have the protection in place.
And you have the coverage in place. Yeah. But what we found was there's just gaps all over the place with the subcontractor's insurance. So our fail-safe offer, again, it's true to our philosophy about the concerns, the breakdowns, and the space of opportunity. So what we do is our offer is to, we'll place the insurance coverage, best pricing, but we're going to reduce the exposure that you have to an insurance company. When we close all the gaps in your subcontractor's insurance, then we reduce your exposure, and now we can go leverage that in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that's how we can produce the better price as well, along with the valuable service, because now you're not going to have as much exposure to litigation and all those things. So so that was the biggest change for us, is just going into like working hard and in sales to designing and inventing offers that have value.
How many customers do you have now?
Geez, I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't have a tally in my head. Yeah, something like that, probably.
What are you allowed to talk about? How much in revenue or policies or whatever you write?
I will say this, that because of that change of philosophy, and it takes a while to start building the background to learn, what I've learned to do that and make this like. The transition wasn't easy, and just in like I said, it's almost like stepping into a different dimension. This orientation changed, but so that took a little while, and then designing and inventing these things and building a network of people. So we work with attorneys, we work with software companies, that are parts of our offer. So there's a lot of extra work that goes into that, but to do all those things takes a little while, and it never happens as quick as you want, right? So really, things started to we changed our philosophy back in 2014, just starting, right? Just learning, and then designing and inventing these other offers that we've designed and invented. And then probably about 2019, the revenue doubled, maybe tripled. I think it tripled from the year before. My income doubled, and then from 19 till last year it doubled again, and the revenue is quadrupled or whatnot. And it's not just because of the offers, but you mentioned we have a team. We have a great team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they all have kind of adopted the philosophy, which is not easy, right? You have a large organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many employees do you have now?
Over 100.
Over 100. So to get them all in the same philosophy,
it's impossible.
It,
We start with the office here, and then we start with the leaders, and then, God willing, the leaders, it trickles, you know. So I mean, man, from teacher to writing $1 million policies, what an amazing story. Imagine the change. Imagine what someone out there is thinking. What would you say, as we're closing, what would you say to that, maybe that young man, that young woman that's possibly looking to make a change in their career the way you did? What would you say to them right now as we close?
I would say you need to be open. Like, you have to be open. You have to be open, and you have to be willing to learn. And then you have to be willing to learn, and then willing to learn from somebody who has what you want. Like, so the accomplishments, they have the accomplishments because the accomplishments that they have prove their capabilities, right?
Yeah.
They just didn't luck out into this thing, and then I was just throwing advice out there. It's like,
Yeah.
so you gotta be open to learning from somebody who lives like you want to live, who has ambitions, right? Because you could, the world is populated with plenty of people with like no ambition or low ambition. So I mean, it all starts there with the ambition. So you have to define and constitute your own ambition. Like, I'd be curious, like, you didn't just build what you've built here because you just happened into it, right? You had probably a set ambition. We want to do this and this, and we want to have this. And you don't build a home like you built and just not having like a clearly held, constituted ambition in your mind.
Yeah, you have to. No, yeah, we got,
and committed.
You got to be committed, and yeah. So saying that to our listeners is like, we can make that change in industries. Like you did is you got to know what you want, right? And you got to know what that path looks like. I said this the other day. I said, people say you do what makes you happy. You never work a day of your life. And I'm like, well, do what makes you money, and it'll make you happy. Once you start making a lot of money, you're gonna get happy. Like, you thought you were happy as a teacher.
I have never wished away a day in the insurance business.
Think about it though. You love to be a teacher. You wanted to be a coach. Imagine if you're still an 8th grade coach. You'd be miserable and broke. Like, not to say anything's wrong with the 8th grade coach.
I bet you I'd be about 30 pounds heavier.
No, maybe 50.
Maybe.
Right? 50. Let's say 50. You have like a piece of chicken in your hand. I seen this on TikTok. No. But like you said, look, what lifestyle do you want to live? That's what you're really, if you want to live that lavish lifestyle, then you got to go get that lavish money. If you want to live a mediocre lifestyle, then that's cool. But like,
it's not what you want to do. It's how do I want to live?
That's what I mean. And yeah, because if you do something, like, that industry may not pay you well.
Yeah, you
know what I mean?
If you have a high ambition and you run a hot dog stand, it's not coherent.
Yeah, you need like 200 hot dog stands.
Yeah, like, so, and then what does that do to the time and all that? You got to factor all that in.
Yeah.
But it is going to start with the ambition. If you don't have the ambition, a lot of people just don't have the ambition. And then, so what that ambition does for you when you constitute it is it sets the commitments then. Like, because you have to make new commitments. And a commitment is a commitment. Like, you're committed to it. Like, something's going to come up and always try to throw you off that commitment. You've experienced that. I experienced that plenty. But the people who can have this ambition or business mission or goal or objective, whatever you want to call it, it requires a new set of commitments, and then sticking to those commitments, no matter what happens, because you're going to have stuff coming at you.
They stick to the commitments. Yeah, we do 5-year plans. You know, our commitments, Felicity and I, and like we've literally changed houses every 5 years. Buildings, right? The first building I was in, we owned, it was 5 years. This one we're in the middle of 3, so I have a 5-year plan. I got to be out of this building into the bigger building. I got to be out of the other house into a better house. 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. I got to be. Our lives need to look bigger and better every 5 years. Every day they're going towards that. But you know, so and that's the ambition. That's the goal setting. That's knowing what it is you want. You know what I mean? And so that's what we do. We map it out. Okay, what it is. It's 5 years. I even did the home loan on this house for 7 years. 2 years to build, 5 years to pay it, and I'm off. I'm off and running.
And so
bigger and better. Bigger and better.
But you had to start making new commitments.
You got to change a lot of things at each level. Right now we're changing. Okay, we got to keep this house super clean out. We're really clean, but now we got to be super clean. We got to be conscious of these new high end appliances and these. So you're changing these habits. You know, like because each level it's different. It costs more. It requires more.
Set of concerns, all of these things.
All of it, and you got to be willing to accept those things as well, right? So, and Aaron, this has been great. You know, it's a pleasure. Anybody watching Gilbert Insurance, they're the best construction insurance group here in town. You could probably go anywhere, but I know in Arizona, they're top notch, top tier. You guys are doing great things. You're rolling out new software, new programs, and I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. And everyone out there, be blessed.